I know that I talked about the prismatic evolution situation already. I feel like there's so much more happening, so much more being affected that needs to be addressed. And I know that pretty much everybody's talking about this stuff right now. I know that I'm kind of a new voice here in the like Pokemon YouTube space, but I have been a Pokemon collector for the last 23 years of my life. Since I was 7 years old, I've never stopped collecting. Pokemon has always been like just my favorite thing in the whole world, from the Game Boy games to the anime to the cards. I loved everything about Pokemon my entire life. And I know that there are lots of collectors out there, like just like me, who have been in this hobby forever and are now kind of watching its downfall. It can be very disheartening for the average collector like myself. I am not a big content creator. I am not a whatnot streamer. I don't make money from the hobby. I have sold cards here and there. I've sold some of my old sealed packs that I used to hold on to when I was in a tight spot financially. I have done that before, but I'm not like a super investor. I'm not a flipper. I'm not any of that stuff. I am just a normal, everyday, average Pokemon fan and collector. And what I've been seeing in the hobby this year, especially, has been extremely disheartening. Obviously, the stuff happening with prismatic evolutions was crazy. We've already talked about that. Nobody can get those cards. The average collector cannot get those cards. So, a couple of things are happening right now in the Pokemon hobby. We have seen a sort of influx, if you will, of like Pokemon content creators, Pokemon whatnot streamers, Pokemon scalpers, and just a really big influx of people who are not actually into the hobby, people who don't actually like buy these things and like cherish them the way that, you know, your average collector does. We're seeing a lot of people who have like quit their job in the last year or so to pursue investing in Pokemon cards. Now, this is not a brand new concept. Like, this has been happening in the hobby for probably since around like 2020 is when it became like a real big thing that people knew about and did. But this has always been a thing. People, you know, investing in cards, saving sealed products, selling it down the road, selling cards down the road, grading cards, selling them for higher prices. All of that has like always been happening. It's just that now where we're at, it's happening way more. And there's not enough space in this hobby for all of the people that want to make a living flipping Pokemon cards. Because unfortunately, what's happening, because there is a huge influx of these flipper people and like scalper people and people trying to start businesses based around Pokemon cards and like things like that, that now there's not enough product left over for the average consumer, for the average fan, for the average TCG player, for the average kid. This is not entirely the Pokemon Company's fault. I don't really agree with everybody saying that the supply didn't meet the demand. I think in reality that the supply probably would have met the demand. It would meet the demand for the average collector, right? Like the collector that's going to go out and buy, you know, 1 to 3 ETBs, maybe a binder pack, a handful of booster packs. I mean, this is what people go out and buy. Most people don't have enough money to go out and buy 10 ETBs, 10 booster boxes, or more. I mean, the average collector does not do that. The average collector cannot afford that. So to say that the supply didn't meet the demand, I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I do not believe that the Pokemon Company was planning for, or even should plan for, to be honest with you, millions of people trying to swipe as many boxes as they can off the shelf and then resell them to the average collector. That isn't really like the Pokemon Company's fault. Personally, like, I didn't think that that was going to happen with this set. I mean, I knew it was going to be overhyped. I knew it was going to be the cards that were pulled were going to be overpriced, especially the Umbreon. I mean, all of that was like very easily predictable, but I did not see coming the wave of scalpers. Like, it was absolutely insane what happened, and how there is absolutely no product left on the shelves right now, even like weeks later is crazy. I do not fully blame the Pokemon Company for this. I do not think that they even saw it coming. Though what I do blame them for, and I'm not 100% sure how it went online. I didn't try to buy one online. By the time I looked online, they were all sold out. I honestly didn't even want the set for myself. I'm not super into modern cards. I was trying to get one for my son, who is 7 and is one of the biggest Pokemon fans out there, just like many other people's children, because again, this is a children's trading card game. So I don't know how many you were allowed to buy online when it dropped on the Pokemon Center's website. However, if they were allowing people to buy more than like 1 to 2 boxes, that is a problem. And I really think that they need to do a better job at putting up these safeguards so that it is not possible for one singular person to end up with 500 ETBs of a brand new set. That's crazy and shouldn't be happening. So I do think there needs to be more safeguards on the Pokemon website. I do think there needs to be more safeguards in the stores. And I know Pokemon doesn't have control over exactly what happens in the retail stores, but places like Target, Walmart, Best Buy, whoever sells these items, because the supply is so high, I do believe that there needs to be more safeguards in place. Like, every customer is limited to one product. Like, that's kind of where we're at. Nobody should be able to walk into a Costco and buy an entire like palette of Pokemon cards, or like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes of them. It's ridiculous. That should not be happening. When the demand for the product is so high, you need to put safeguards on these things. For example, during COVID, and this is a crazy example that I'm using this comparison for Pokemon cards. But during COVID, toilet paper was hard to come by. People were stocking up on toilet paper, not leaving toilet paper for anybody else to wipe their ass with. The stores ended up putting a safeguard there where you could only buy one, pack of toilet paper per customer because the demand was so high. Was the supply super low for toilet paper? Not really. No. Toilet paper's everywhere. There's millions and millions of toilet paper on the shelves right now. There was during COVID too. It's just that we had people going in and trying to buy all the toilet paper for themselves because everyone was panicking. That is very similar to what's happening right now in Pokemon cards, which is such a crazy comparison. But that's what the stores need to be doing. That's what the Pokemon Center does kind of need to make sure is happening with these products, is that people are not able to buy more than 1 to 2 per customer. And sure, the scalper could go into one store and buy their 2 there, go to another store, buy their 2 there, sure. But this would make it much more difficult. The scammers would have a way harder time if every single store that sells Pokemon cards, had these safeguards in place. It would be much, much easier for the average consumer, which is most of the Pokemon fan base, most of the Pokemon hobby, to get an ETB, to get a couple booster packs if they had these limits in place. And I think that it should remain that way until the demand drops down back to some kind of normal standard. It is really unfortunate though to see like so many real collectors, real people in this hobby get priced out, get resourced out, because most of us don't have the resources to, find a distributor, to spend $150 on an ETB. Times are already pretty tough out here. Like, our economy right now is bad. A lot of people are struggling to make ends meet, pay their bills. It was hard enough to spend $50 for most people on an ETB in the first place. It's hard enough for people to buy a couple of booster packs. And now we're just at a point where unless you're like literally rich, you're priced out of the hobby. You're not going to be able to get the products at the moment that you want, unfortunately, for MSRP. You're not going to be able to get the cards that you want, unfortunately, because they are wildly overpriced. This affects more than just like the average collector, right? This also affects the people that play the Pokemon trading card game. Pokemon holds events, tournaments, things of that nature. Well, tons and tons of players, most players, are not going to be able to get their hands on these new sets that are dropping. What the scalpers and these people that like don't want to work a real job and think that this is gonna this is going to last forever. This is going to be their job. So they're going to steal as much product as they can and try to scam people, right? What they're not realizing is there's not going to be anyone left to sell to eventually. The people that buy your stuff are being priced out. They're being left behind. I was really surprised to see how many comments on my last video there were of collectors, saying that they're out, they're leaving the hobby until it gets back to normal or forever. They don't want anything to do with it right now. They can't afford it. It's not fun. All it does is cause them stress at this point. It's not fun to go to 20 stores and see all empty shelves, look online or Facebook Market or wherever to try and find a card you're missing for your set or just really want for your collection in general or want for the trading card game. And it's like $500. People aren't going to pay that, And I'm sure some people do. I guess if you have the money and you have the expendable funds, most people cannot. Like physically, financially, can't. What's going to end up happening is the only people that are going to be left buying these things are like whatnot streamers and YouTubers. People who aren't even actually trying to collect the thing, they're just using the thing to make money. But eventually, when everyone left is just trying to make money off of each other, you guys are not going to be profitable at a certain point. Collectors leaving the hobby is pretty detrimental. It's pretty bad. I see a lot of comments from scalpers being immature about this. Oh, no one's gonna miss you anyway. Leave. Oh, you're too broke to afford an ATV. Go cry about it somewhere else. These people are so fucked in the head. Even if I wanted to buy these products, at the ridiculous prices that they're charging, I still wouldn't because I just don't want to support these horrible people. They're just the worst type of person. The most immature person to talk to is a grown man Pokemon scalper who does this instead of getting a real job and calls everybody else a crybaby online when they're just sad that they couldn't get cards that they wanted for them and also many times for their child. And they're just like, go cry about it somewhere else, you fucking 8-year-old. What's wrong with you? Anyway, it is pretty detrimental to the hobby when, hundreds and thousands of collectors are dropping out because they can't afford the stuff anymore. It will affect the trading card game, the tournaments, the events. It will have an effect on businesses. It will have an effect on your whatnot streams. And sadly, it will probably have long-lasting effects on the hobby just in general. When cool and real collectors leave because of the greed, because of the lack of community, it's just sad. Because where we're at right now in the hobby is, you can't get the new cards. You can't get the new sets that are dropping. The new Journey Together set is also going to be impossible for everybody to find. And I think every set that this happens with is just going to drive more and more people out of the hobby. It's a shame to see. Obviously, all these sets will be getting reprints. They're going to get back on the shelves. But again, unless Pokemon Center and the retail stores do anything about the limits, limiting people to how many products they can buy, then nothing's going to change. To be honest with you, I don't think anything's going to change in the very near future, but what goes up must come down, and at some point you are going to see the prices kind of fix themselves. Nobody likes to sit on product forever. I've already been seeing the Prismatic Evolution sets dropping. They're going from 120 to 90. The binder collections are dropping. The poster collections are dropping. Nobody likes to sit on product forever. So, eventually the prices will come down. People are just going to want them gone and want to have their money back at some point. Yeah, this is not going to be a fun year for Pokemon at all. If you are a collector, just an average person that enjoys the hobby, it's going to be a rough year. What I will say is that if you do want to stick around in the hobby and you're willing to not focus so heavily on the new sets, the modern sets, then what I would recommend is that you look into vintage a little bit, because everybody is so hyper focused on the modern stuff that vintage is actually decently affordable at the moment, which is really cool because that's what I collect. So I'm having a good time over here getting some prime cards and some level X's and stuff like that. Vintage is pretty cool to collect. So if you're into that at all, that's my suggestion to you for now. I do think there will be product on the shelves again eventually, and I do think that a lot of the scalpers and the kind of the newer people that have popped up in here will probably leave. They will probably end up getting tired of losing money, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to lose money. The scalping thing is not gonna work for every single person that does it. A lot of people are gonna lose money and try something else out since they don't want to get real jobs. Or hey, maybe they will go get a job. Who knows? So even though it's gonna be a rough year, you know, I am hopeful that eventually things will kind of calm down a bit. Like I said, what goes up must come down. It's these inflated prices are not going to last forever. The bubble that we're in is going to pop at some point. My biggest suggestion to you though is to not buy from the scalpers. Do not pay these crazy prices. Every time you buy from them and you pay these ridiculous prices, you're basically validating that price point. And it's the reason that we're in the mess that we're in right now. I suggest not putting, anything on your credit cards. Don't take out loans and stuff to afford Pokemon cards. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Wait till it comes back down. Wait till you see it in a store again at MSRP. But don't put yourselves into like financial debt for Pokemon cards. We just have to be patient and wait for some of the scalpers to dip. If you are supporting YouTubers and streamers that are like way overhyping all the sets, way overhyping all the cards, maybe just don't support those people because they are also the problem. They are also the reason the hobby is so, fucked. But yeah, try to keep your head up. It's gonna be a rough year. We'll get through it. And if you are taking a break from the hobby, I totally support you in that. You're very valid for doing that. I myself have been taking quite a long break as well, though picking up vintage here and there because nobody's even like talking about vintage or worried about vintage right now, which is cool for me because as you can see, that's kind of the stuff that I'm into. But it's sad for kids because kids aren't into vintage. You know what I mean? Like, not really. Like the kids would like to just buy a pack at the store and open them. So it's just a wild time that we're living in. Don't let the FOMO get to you. It's gonna be okay. Eventually. Eventually. I don't know when, but it's gonna be okay. Alright guys, that was my little rant about the state of the Pokemon hobby right now. It is a rough time out here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see more content like this from me, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you guys want to leave a comment, let me know. Let me know what you think is the solution to this problem. Let me know if you think that you are going to remain in the hobby. What's your take? What is your take on all of this as a collector? If you're a scalper, get the fuck out. Thank you guys. Have a good day.